Okay, welcome back to Trading with Market Profile and Volume Profile course. We're on chapter number 8. Now we're going to talk about the differences and comparisons between market profile versus volume profile. So again, when I started conceptualizing this course, I was thinking of only talking about market profile, but then I realized for me, these two concepts go such hand in hand, these two indicators, that I think it's important to just talk about them together. I love volume profile, and I think that these two tools together are really gonna give you the best results, and they're gonna give you the best information. So let's just talk quickly about volume profile. Again, I have a lot of content on volume profile, not just on my previous trading courses that I have, but also on YouTube as well. So you can find a lot of information there. But let's talk about the basics. So same as with TPO charts, there is a point of control, which is in this case going to be the level with the most traded volume. So we have this chart going from here all the way to here. We have a volume profile applied. So remember, volume profile is measuring prices, volume of traded prices versus volume versus price, basically. In this case, for volume profile, we're not really measuring anything related to time, just number of contracts traded versus the price of the whatever market we are tracking. So in this case, point of control is right here, and you can see this is where market traded the most during this entire period. Then we're going to have a valley area, which again is 68%, which in this case would be right over here. This would be 68% of where all the traded volume from here all the way to here, 68% of the volume was traded within this valley area right here. Then we're going to have obviously valley area high here, valley area low right over here. Okay, high volume node or HVN are areas of accumulated volumes where price tends to chop. So on the profile, you can see represented right here. Basically, the areas that you see sticking out, these are going to be high volume nodes. This is always going to coincide with areas where there was some accumulation of price. Therefore, we had a buildup of volumes transacted on these areas, driving the profile to extend further and further. Okay, then we have LVNs or low volume nodes, which is the opposite. These are areas where very little volumes accumulated, so we identify them by all these cuts within the profile, and you can see that these are areas of support and resistance. So if I take a line tool and I extend this, you can see that there was a lot of significant support and resistance levels right around this key cut areas in the volumes. Okay, so as I teach in all my volume profile courses and concepts, and we're going to see in this course, for me, the edges of the high volume nodes are the best places to get in on trades to go with the trend. Like if we take this high volume node, and I know this profile is developing. Like when we were around this area, this profile was not going to be as developed as it is yet, but still you can see how here we had resistance, we broke and accepted inside of this high volume node, push back, we're making higher lows, so now the odds are more in favor of longs. and we're coming into the bottom area of a high volume node where there's some nice cuts in volumes. And you can see like here would have been a really nice opportunity to get in long on this point. Similarly here, if we extend this further out now, when we came here, when market broke below here, now we shifted market structure up, and now we're making lower highs and lower lows. So on this pullback right over here, we're coming into the top edge of the node within a downtrend. So these are the highest probability areas in order to look to execute, for example, shorts. Okay, so we can use different types of volume profiles. There's a fixed range, periodic, and session volume profiles. We can use all of this in our strategies. I'm going to have a lesson later on in the course where we're going to go specifically and just go into the trading platform and go over all of these types of volume profiles and how we're going to use, how we're going to implement them on the charts. Okay, so right here, there's actually all the trading platforms that offer you market profile, well, except TradingView for the moment. But, oh no, actually, yeah, you can do this on TradingView, sorry. This is one of the options that they already have enabled. But you can have side by side a TPO chart and the corresponding volume profile. You can see that they're going to be very similar, and it makes sense because, you know, if a market spends more time trading at a certain price, you expect more volumes to build up at that price as well. You know, obviously depends too on what time of day it is, etc. But you can see how these three profiles, they look fairly similar. You know, this one has a large node right here. This one has a very large high volume node here. This one has sort of a double distribution. The volume profile here is a little bit choppier, but you can see we have the bigger high volume nodes there. This one, we got a pretty balanced day with a very big distribution in the middle. Here you can see it's similar. We do have a little more volumes on the top here than what we had time, as you can see. But overall, you know, we had a very similar point of control, okay? And you can see that too. The points of control are not always going to match, and neither are the valley areas as well. So you can see, like in this case, these valley areas are very similar, but you can see the point of control on the volume profile was a little bit lower than on the TPO. Right here on this one, the point of control was completely different, okay? And a explanation for this is taken from the S&P 500 market. So it makes sense. You can see market opened right here. So most of the bulk of this happened during extended trading hours, which you can see doesn't have a lot of volumes because this is not when large market participants are really trading as the stock market is closed. But then as we got here near the end of the day and we closed right here, our point of control shifted up into this area because we had a lot of traded volumes near the close of this trading session. So you can see here, even though we spend the most amount of time at this price level, so the TPO point of control is down here, the actual volume profile point of control happened at this price levels on top, okay? Here you can see as well, this is represented a news event. So we had a low volume, low liquidity period right here of consolidation right before an FOMC Federal Reserve meeting at 2. Right as the news hits, You can see a huge injection of volume, thin order book causing very high volatility. And you can see it in the volume profile right here as well. We accumulated a big high volume node right around this consolidation area, coming pretty much from 9:30 a.m. all the way to 2. And then in the last 2 hours, we accumulated actually a very significant amount of volumes for just about a period of, pretty much all we had up here was 3 TPO periods pretty much. So in 3 hours between 2, 3, and then the last two, the 2 and 3 o'clock hours, we accumulated a lot of volumes up in this area to finish off that trading day. Okay. Similarly here, where we talked about earlier, we have the TPO and volume profile, and you can see we have double distributions. We have a low volume node here, which coincides with a single row of TPOs. And then the next day here, the next session, you can see that we opened right over here. We pushed into that gap, into the top edge of this nodes here, and then market pushed up from there. Okay, so you can see again, pushed down here, accepted back inside this high volume node, and then we retested the bottom edges here on both the TPO and volume profile, and then we just continued trending higher. Similarly here, we have market opened, we accumulated a lot of time here. You can see less volumes because again, this is in the futures market, so the extended trading hours doesn't have that much volume. Then we accumulated a lot more down here during regular market hours. We have a point of control down here for the volume profile, and you can see then on the next day we opened here, trended lower, and then we pushed right up into this top edge of the high volume nodes, and then rejected and then continued into a strong move down. Okay, and if we go into Sierra chart, just showing you here, this is a chart of the Bitcoin market. So this is 24-hour market profiles for Bitcoin. And if I go into chart analysis studies, I'm gonna enable the volume profiles, and you can see right here, now we have our TPOs with the corresponding volume profiles. And you can see a lot of them look very similar. For example, this one's, the point of controls were almost identical, whereas we have other ones, like for example, this big trend day that we pushed up to close at the highs, we opened here, and the TPO POC was here, but the volume profile was actually, the point of control of the volume profile was right here near the lows. And then we had a late rally to the upside. I can actually split this, and we can see this day how market pretty much evolved. And you can see right near the close of the day in the last few hours, we had this impulsive move to close at the highs. Okay, so in this case, in the future, this will be a very important level to track. This was pretty much the gap of the low volume node and the gap of this single TPO that we left. So these are going to be very significant levels to track in the future as well. Okay, let me take this off. And you can see how having both side by side just gives you a good corroboration of how the profiles look like. Like this case, you can see we had an open and just very little time spent over here before we broke out, and then we formed a pretty balanced distribution there for the rest of the day, and our points of control were pretty much identical, and the value areas as well. The 68% of both the time and the volume were spent pretty much in the same range. Okay, so that's just a recap of volume profiles and market profile compared. As we continue in this course, we're going to keep using them both a lot together. And so with that, I'll leave you and we'll go into the next lesson.